Welcome to my office at the IOOF Seniors Homes, Inc. here in Barrie, and we're happy to be able to share this space, although we are having to abide by all the rules. So the cameraman is more than 6 feet away from me, and he's wearing a mask, and I'm happy about that. But because of the distance, of course, I have mine removed, and because of what we're going to do right now. You are likely acquainted with the fact that Jesus was a storyteller. As a matter of fact, there's one piece of scripture that says he hardly ever spoke, or he never spoke, unless it was in the form of a story. And likely many of the stories, they could have been original, of course, but in many cases we're told they weren't necessarily so. And as all rabbis did in those days, you adapted your story to fit your audience or your congregation. And so I'm going to use that idea loosely. And I say loosely because I'm going to choose some children's books, having been in ministry for children for many years, read them to you, if you can hang on long enough to hear them, and then suggest the message, if it isn't already clear to you, at the end. Now this first one is a really neat one, I think, and I hope it works. The only problem with it, if I may say so, is its length. It's a bit of a long story, so I'm going to watch myself, and I may skip through some parts in the middle. You know, if you're a grandparent and you know grandkids are reading a bedtime story, you can't do that. You can't skip through because you'll be called to task. You probably have not heard this story, so if I skip through, you won't be the wiser. And I'm sorry, I can't show you the pictures. Who is Sam Harrington? It's written by Rick Osborne and Kay Christie Bowler. It's illustrated by Dara Goldman, and it's a Zonder Kids book. It goes back a few years. The dreary little town of Coaldale was not a fun place to live. No one showed up for the annual town picnic. Most of the pews in the church were empty, and faces everywhere were frowns. People passed each other without even saying hello. Old-timers complained about the new folk, and the new folk complained about the old-timers. But one day, everything changed. Sunday morning, Jenny Pepper ran into Coaldale Community Church, knocking Bobby Frank's glasses right off his face. "Hey, watch where you're going, clumsy," he snarled. Jenny was already late. She glanced back, then raced to her class. After the service, people complained, as usual, about the weather, the mayor, and the price of hamburgers. They even complained about Mr. Strickson, the town grump, because he complained too much. Jenny ran down the aisle ahead of her parents. She put her back to the sanctuary's huge oak doors, braced her legs, and pushed them wide open. "Thank you, Jenny," her parents said, surprised. Jenny grinned. "It's what Sam Harrington would do," she said. "Sam who?" the Peppers asked. But Jenny had already run off toward their home just down the block. On her way, Jenny noticed Bobby Franks trying to carry a wobbly stack of books, almost as tall as he was. Then she saw Rocky, the school bully, riding around the corner toward Bobby. "That's what Bobby gets for yelling at me this morning," she thought, watching to see what would happen. Suddenly she remembered Sam Harrington and called, "Look out!" Too late. Rocky's bike brushed against Bobby, and Bobby and his books tumbled to the ground. As Jenny ran over, Bobby grumbled, "Leave me alone. I don't need your help." I'm sorry about knocking you down earlier, Jenny said. I should have watched where I was going. Yeah, Bobby agreed, surprised. Then he added, well, that's all right. Jenny bent to help Bobby gather his books into 2 piles. You sure read a lot, she said. That must be why you're so smart in school. Bobby's cheeks went red as he ducked his head. Jenny helped him carry the books all the way to his house. When they arrived and the books were safe on the kitchen table, he said, "Oh, thanks, Jenny." "No problem," Jenny replied. "That's what Sam Harrington would do." She waved and headed for home. Her next encounter was with another neighbor and had to do with his pet dog. And again, Jenny lends assistance in the situation, and again, she uses the line, "That's what Sam Harrington would do." This happens multiple times. Let's see. Here's another one, and another one, and another one. Each and every time, Jenny, who normally would pass by all these situations, stopped to lend a hand, and as she walked away smiling and feeling good, quoted, "That's what Sam Harrington would do. That's what Sam Harrington would do." It kept going. It kept going through the week. The only thing is, as it kept going through the week, more and more people heard her say, "That's what Sam Harrington would do." And more people became curious. Who is this Sam Harrington? There's nobody in this community by that name. The old folks didn't know anybody. They'd been there a long time. The new folks didn't know the name. They'd been from other places and they hadn't encountered it. So what's with this Sam Harrington? Who is Sam Harrington? Well, they ended up, I think, at a Wednesday night prayer meeting. Well, when may have been Tuesday night back in the day. You remember those, right? The whole church was expecting Pastor Lyle to finally announce who Sam Harrington is. The whole church sighed in disappointment. Pastor Lyle didn't know. "Does anyone know who Sam Harrington is?" he asked again. Silence. Then a small voice piped up. "I know who he is, don't you?" Every head turned toward Jenny Pepper. "Miss James told us," she said. Every eye turned to Miss James, the Sunday school teacher. Her jaw dropped, for she'd been asking the same question as everyone else. She shrugged and held up her empty hands. "I'm sorry, Jenny," she said, "but I don't think I've heard of Sam Harrington." The crowd held its breath and looked back at Jenny. "But you told us about him last Sunday morning, Miss James," she said. "Remember? Jesus told the story about the man who was hurt and the good Sam Harrington was kind to him. You said that's what Jesus wants us to do, to be like the good Sam Harrington." There was half a second of silence, and then all the adults began to laugh. Jenny was more puzzled than ever. I hope you're not puzzled. And of course, the story was explained to her, and she understood everyone's confusion. That's what the good Sam Harrington would do. You know, if you turn to Scripture, you'll find it in Luke's Gospel, and only in Luke's Gospel, chapter 10, verses 25 to 28. And you're familiar with the story. And what you may or may not remember, at the end of the story, Jesus asked the question, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Your turn to be Sam Harrington. Have a good day.